everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Web3 Deep Dive Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Wolfson. Today, I've got a great interview lined up for you guys. I'm speaking with Marc Vanlerberghe. He is the Chief Strategy and Marketing Officer at Algorand Foundation. So this is a great interview for Algo fans, for everybody that knows about Algorand already, and just also newbies that want to learn more about Algorand. The network has been around for 6 years now, and there's a lot of changes coming ahead, which I discuss in this interview with Marc. So you guys need to stay tuned for the entire episode to hear about all of that. We also talk about the blockchain trilemma and how Algorand is solving that. We talk about things happening here in the United States with regulations and stable coins. So this is a really great interview, and I encourage you guys to watch it in its entirety. Before getting started with today's interview, I also want to take the time to thank Own.App for letting us film at this beautiful creator space here in Austin, Texas. You guys are going to hear more about what Own is doing later in this episode, so stay tuned for that. Before getting started, I also want to remind you guys to like and subscribe, especially if you enjoy the content that you're seeing today. It would mean the world to me if you stay in touch, so be sure to do that. And without further ado, let's get started with today's interview with Marc. Hey, Marc, how's it going?
Doing well, then. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. And I'm really excited to speak with you today because I don't know if you know this, but I'm a fan of Algorand.
Great to hear.
Wonderful. So this is a really exciting interview. You're finally on the podcast, which is great. Marc, before we get started, maybe tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, your background, and what you do at Algorand Foundation.
Okay, so I'm Marc Vanlerberghe. I joined the foundation about a year and a half ago as Chief Strategy and Marketing Officer. And then before that, I spent about 10 years at Google, where I was the head of marketing, the CMO for Android. And I've done some other things before as well, but yeah, that was I spent a lot of time at Google working on Android.
Okay, that's really interesting. So you've spent years at Google and now you're in the crypto Web3 space. So
yes.
What made that transition?
Well, it's interesting. I was after I left Google, I was looking at crypto. I was following crypto quite closely, and I was thinking about doing a startup in crypto, because before joining Google, I had run other startups before, and so I went to San Francisco to the first blockchain conference. I think it was 2018, if I'm not mistaken, and to kind of listen what was going on in crypto and what was trending. And so one thing I realized, there was a lot of academic speakers, a lot of professors, and it was a time when it was the first crypto conference, and everybody was talking about, how can you scale blockchain networks beyond 2 transactions per second or 5 transactions per second. And it made me realize two things. One is probably not the right time to do a consumer-focused startup, which was what I was planning on doing. But secondly, I got really, really intrigued and interested in the basic technology and kind of the combination of economics with cryptography and computer science. And I was kind of hooked from that point forward. I've been following the industry very closely. And so when this opportunity came about a year and a half ago to join Algorand, I just couldn't say no.
Wow. Okay. So you left Google to join Algorand, or were you already in the crypto space before you joined Algorand?
So Algorand was my first real full-time crypto job.
Wow. Yes. Okay. That's great. Wonderful. Well, maybe tell our listeners a little bit about Algorand and Algorand Foundation.
Okay. So let me talk about Algorand first. So Algorand is a layer 1 blockchain. It's been around for quite a while. It's been around for about 6 years and doing quite well. It's processed over 3 billion transactions so far. And it has never failed. Over those 6 years, Algorand has been running with 100% uptime. And so it is known for 2 key things. One is, I think the consensus mechanism of Algorand is very, very special. It's very, very elegant. And it makes it so that the network is extremely scalable while being very decentralized. So pretty much anybody can run a node. So I'm actually running a node on a mini PC at home, and I can stake as little as 1 algo. Anybody can run a node. And as we all know, like the big proof of censorship resistance is if you can run a node at very low cost from your home. And so Algorand does this while being very, very scalable at the same time. So that is because of its consensus mechanism. The second thing Algorand is very known for is the real world scale applications that it is able to do. And there's a number of reasons for that. We talked about scalability, but it also has a very interesting feature called instant finality, which is very unique in the blockchain industry. It's the idea that when a transaction gets admitted in a block, gets added to a block, that transaction will never be reverted, ever. And so because the chain never forks. And so that's a very unique feature, which is really important in real world applications. If you're like a big bank or financial institution, you want to have certainty that transactions that are recorded on a blockchain go through and never fail and never get reverted. And so that certainty is baked into the protocol. And so it enables a whole range of use cases that Algorand is very, very well known for. For instance, tokenization. We have so many tokenization projects on Algorand, whether it's like money market funds or treasuries. The first public stock that was ever tokenized on a blockchain was actually tokenized on Algorand. It was Exodus. And also we have a number of tokenized real estate is another one. Lofty is very well known in the industry as one of the leading real estate tokenization platforms. So a number of these use cases are really Algorand is very well known for.
Yeah, exactly. And I know Lofty, I'm familiar with that project.
Yeah.
When I think of Algorand, I think of a lot of like enterprise, real world use cases. Would you say that that's kind of the case with the network that we're seeing?
Well, there are a number of those for sure. Like I should also mention Enel is a big electricity company that's tokenizing solar panels on chain. So if you're in Italy and you want to install solar panels, you can now buy these tokenized versions of the solar panels from your electricity provider, and you get all the benefits of solar without having to install physically a panel on your roof, which is kind of interesting as well. But I think beyond the enterprise use cases, I think we have a thriving DeFi ecosystem as well. Projects like Volks Finance, who's our leading lending and borrowing platform that is preparing a token generation event very soon. So we're very excited about them. We have Tinyman, who's our leading AMM. Alpha Arcade is quite known as a prediction market that is doing extremely well in Algorand. So there's a whole range of like DeFi activities happening as well. And actually DeFi works extremely smoothly on Algorand because of the fact that transactions never fail and you have this instant finality. It's a very kind of smooth Web 2-like experience. So it works very well.
Yeah, instant finality, that's a really important and interesting concept. So, I mean, in terms of how that works with Algorand, there are other blockchain networks that don't have that, right? So how does that work with Algorand? How does it ensure that transactions don't fail?
Well, so the instant finality means that when a transaction gets entered into a block, that block will never be invalidated later. The problem with most blockchain networks is that you can never guarantee that there's only going to be one block proposer and only one. And so in most networks, multiple nodes can propose a block at roughly the same time. At which point, both blocks get appended to the network, and at some point, there's a mechanism that decides which sidechain is going to fail. And then all of the transactions that are in the blocks that are on the shortest side of the chain are going to be reverted. And that's called a soft fork. And so most of the other blockchains work that way. Algorand doesn't work that way because of our consensus mechanism guaranteed that there's only going to be one block that will make it to the chain and only one and no other. And so that's because of its consensus mechanism, which is super elegant. It's based on this notion of a verifiable random function. So basically the consensus mechanism runs like a big lottery. Anybody who stakes algos, for every algo you stake, you get a lottery ticket. And basically the system will basically select who gets to propose a block by running a lottery. And only one block ultimately gets certified by the network. And you can never have multiple blocks certified at the same time. And that ensures that no transaction will ever be reverted later.
Interesting. Wow. Good to know. Okay. Marc, before we get started with some deeper questions, could you also explain what Algorand Foundation is as well?
Yes, so Algorand Foundation basically is a nonprofit, and the goal of the Algorand Foundation is really to help the ecosystem thrive. And so we look after the developers, we look after all the projects, we look after governance. We work very closely with Algorand technology on any kind of software updates and protocol updates. And so ultimately, the goal of the foundation is to really ensure that we have a thriving ecosystem of developers, of users, and of projects.
Got it. Okay. So Algorand has been around, did you say 6 years?
6
It's
years.
been around for a long time. Since
That's right.
what, 2017, 2018?
2019.
Oh, 2019, right. What year is it today? It's 2025. Okay, that makes sense.
Yes.
I can't do math. So Algorand has been around for quite a while. And I know a lot of the leadership team there, but I want to talk about what the roadmap for Algorand looks like moving forward, because you guys have been around for so long. I want to know what's new, what's happening with Algorand nowadays.
Yes. So our roadmap, we just released a new version of our roadmap 2 weeks ago. And so the roadmap really has 4 pillars. And so one pillar is around OG values. We still believe in OG values. If you look at some of the kind of more recent blockchains that were created, you could see that those chains don't talk too much about decentralization anymore. And actually, when you look at how expensive it is to run a node, it's not very decentralized at all. We still believe in these original kind of values of decentralization and governance. And so one pillar of the roadmap is focusing on those elements. The second pillar is focusing on mass adoption. And we believe that mass adoption will come if you remove all of the friction points and all of the complexity for users, for developers, and also for businesses. And we all know there's still quite a few friction points left in crypto. So that's the second pillar. The third pillar is focused on what we consider to be key strategic use cases. And those are focused on tokenizing financial products. They're focused on agentic commerce and on identity, and we can go into details on all of them. And then the fourth pillar is around bleeding edge research, making sure that Algorand's technology stays on top, and with investments in privacy, specifically in further scalability and in quantum security. So those are kind of the 4 pillars. And if you look at those pillars, I think what's interesting about them, if you compare these pillars to what other blockchains are doing, that a lot of the effort that we are putting in is really on the enabling piece, is on not purely the protocol level, but on things that are on top of the protocol. Because we believe that ultimately mass adoption will come from actually the layers that exist above the protocol. We don't necessarily have to focus on the protocol ourselves, because we already have this finality, we already have the scalability, we already have the security. And so we don't need to focus on fixing basic problems like other chains have to do.
Right. Let's talk about ease of use, because I think that's a big thing here.
Right.
We're seeing prices go up, Bitcoin, Ethereum, all these prices are going up. I think the Algo token was also up today. But let's talk about ease of use. How can we ensure that crypto is user-friendly moving forward? What is Algorand doing to bring that Web 2 audience into the industry?
Yeah, so there's 2 things that we're doing. We're looking at this from a Web 2.5 and then a Web 3 perspective. So Web 2.5 is how can we make it easy for app developers, for businesses to create experiences that use a blockchain as an infrastructure layer, but hide the complexity from the user by custodying the keys on behalf of the user, right? So this kind of custody-based solutions. And so we launched a product called Intermezzo. And Intermezzo is a set of custodial APIs that make it easy for businesses to create custodial apps. And so the first customer that is using this is World Chess. And World Chess is a partner of ours, and World Chess just launched a completely on-chain loyalty program. And so if you're a chess player, World Chess has over 1 million chess players registered in that platform. If you're a chess player, you don't have to know anything about crypto. You basically play games, you get loyalty points for winning games, for maintaining a streak. And the back end, the infrastructure behind it is completely crypto-based. It's completely based on Algorand. But it was very easy for World Chess to implement this, and it's very easy for users to use because we've just kind of abstracted away all the complexity, both for the business and for the users. So that's one element. But ultimately, we all believe that self-custody is critical, right? That's why we're here in crypto, is basically to own our own assets. And so for that audience, we are building a completely new, from the ground up, Web3 wallet, which we call Rocka. And it has been completely redesigned from the ground up to attract non-techie users. It has identity at its core, a decentralized identity at its core. It supports verifiable credentials framework. It's based on open standards. And on top of that, we are providing and we are removing all the friction, so we don't have to basically worry about private keys anymore. We use the protocol that we define together with the DREC Alliance to do social recovery of private keys. We do fee abstraction, so you never have to pay in algos for anything. If I want to send you a USDC to you, trying to explain to a regular user that now you need algos to send dollars from one person to another is already like a problem. It's already a friction point. So we now introduce fee abstraction. So a wallet owner, a wallet provider can abstract the algo fees away, so that allows you to send a USDC to me without paying any transaction costs. So it has, we believe that's going to be a very important component of creating a really user-friendly environment. And so the wallet is completely built up from the ground up to be Web2 centric and non-techy, while maintaining the very important idea of self-sovereignty.
So I'm assuming this is not like a hardware wallet, right? This is something,
No.
Is it an app on your phone and you just...
It's going to be a software, yes, it's going to be an app on your phone, and it's also private labeled and open sourced. So anybody can actually take the wallet and basically build their own version of it. And so actually World Chess is actually going to create a World Chess branded version of this, which they call a global chess passport. So a chess player will be able to take self-custody over their loyalty points, but they'll also be able to take self-custody of their reputation that they've built with World Chess. So, how much points do they have? Are they a grandmaster? Whatever they are, all of the reputations that they built with World Chess, they'll be able to take ownership of that. And when they play in a real life tournament, they'll be able to just prove who they are and what their reputation is by just scanning a QR code, and they're done with it. And so we basically taken this to the next level. And so again, as a chess player, you won't know necessarily you're using crypto behind it, because all of the complexity will be hidden away for you. But you're using Algorand, you're managing your own identity, you're managing your own reputation, you have access to your own loyalty points, and you'll be able to manage this in a very easy way.
When is the wallet going to be launched and ready for users to use?
So the first version we're hoping to launch the first version of this by the end of this year, and then roll out the open source version sometime with the first half of next year.
Okay. And then my question is, why is this important for Algorand now to launch Rocca wallet? You said it's called Rocca?
Yeah, Rocca is Italian for fortress. And of course, the first goal of a fortress is to make sure your assets are safe.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, that makes sense. That's good to know. Why is it important to launch that now? And I'm asking because we're seeing stable coins booming. Everybody is starting to use stable coins now. People want a better and easier way to transact using stable coins. Like, what was the purpose behind the wallet launch now?
Well, this is a good moment to launch it, right? Because I think there's increased interest in blockchain technology. As you mentioned, stablecoin are the killer use case for this, but we want to make it as easy as possible for people to engage with stablecoins, for instance. And so again, the example I gave you, if I want to send you $1 in stablecoins, why do I have to know about algo or gas fees or any of those types of things, right? I should just be able, like using Venmo, right? There's no secret like fees in a different currency. If you send, $1 in Venmo from one person to the other, the same thing should be true in crypto. You shouldn't need to know all of the underlying stuff that is going behind the scenes. And so for stablecoins to really take off from a user perspective and get non-techie users on it, you need a different type of wallet. And that's the type of wallet that we're building.
So it could be like considered the Venmo for stable coins, maybe, right?
Who knows? Might be. There's many use cases, many use cases that this will enable.
Right. Okay. Well, that's exciting. So another thing that I'm looking forward to, and I don't think you mentioned this yet, is Algorand is moving back to the United States. So first of all, I guess where was Algorand based before? Or where is it currently based?
Well, so Algorand was founded in the US. So Algorand Technologies is based in Boston, and so that's where the company was founded. And so, because of all the uncertainty around regulation and everything, we were kind of forced to establish ourselves outside the US. And so the foundation is based in Singapore. And so, yes, the plan is to bring the foundation back to the US now that there's far more clarity and a much more crypto positive environment in the US. We definitely want to bring the foundation back to the US. That's our plan.
I want to get your thoughts on that as well. I mean, do you see, I think you're US based. So do you see as someone in crypto that the US is becoming this crypto hub now that with the new administration, we're seeing all of this crypto friendly policy? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I think so. I definitely think so, and I think these policy changes make a huge amount of difference, right? I mean, it was pretty scary to try and do business in the U.S. before, because there was regulation uncertainty. There was no regulation, and so the SEC was regulating by enforcement, which is never a good idea and a good thing. And so there was quite a bit of fear about, like, hey, what can you do and what can you not do, and what's legal, what's not legal, and all this uncertainty. The fact that there's now regulation in place, or increasingly there's more regulation in place, means there's more certainty, and you know what you can do and what you cannot do. And so that is really, really incredibly important. And I think it will bring innovation back to the US for sure. And we are heavily
Definitely.
focused on the US.
Definitely. Right. You are the new media, influencer, creator, brand. You aren't just posting, you're creating the future. Own is the app designed for you, and you'll earn what you deserve. 50% more than other social apps. Weekly ranks, featured posts, tipping, and you don't even need followers to go viral. Download Own and share your affiliate link. You'll earn 3 Own tokens for everyone you get to sign up. Own, because you're the next generation of media. Okay, let's talk a little bit about DeFi on Algorand, because I'm familiar with the use cases, like the enterprise use cases, and how Algorand is being used in the real world. Let's talk about DeFi, because you mentioned that Algorand is a great network for that.
Yeah, so DeFi. So I mean, we have all the DeFi, all the things you'd expect from a DeFi ecosystem. We have them. As I mentioned, the number one DeFi protocol on Algorand is Volks Finance. Has been around for quite some time. They're a lending and borrowing platform. We have Tinyman, who is our DEX, our main DEX on Algorand. Alpha Arcade is a very exciting kind of new player, and is going gangbusters. They do prediction markets, and they're very popular. And so we have a whole range of we have a lot of routers as well. Vestige is one of our top routers on Algorand, and I think the reason why DeFi is working so well is because of the underlying technology. The fact that you have instant finality means that when you do a transaction on DeFi, it'll go through, and it'll never fail. We don't have any failures on Algorand either. The fact that the costs are so low, you can actually there's a lot of arbitrage going on, and so the spreads that you see are very small, because you could arbitrage very small amounts away very, very easily. And because we have this thing called atomic swaps, when you use a router that uses complex routes to find the best rates, with atomic swaps, you can create this atomic grouping where all these transactions that you do, all the multiple steps, all the hops that you're jumping through to get the best rate, they all get bundled into a single block. And so they will either all go through or they all fail, which means that when you do grouping like this, and when you use a router like that, it will work very reliably and super, super fast. And so it creates this kind of very smooth experience on Algorand, where transactions don't fail, they go too fast, you don't have to wait, and it's a very Web 2-like experience.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, because you're using terms that Web 2 users probably aren't familiar with, like atomic swaps, and just how is Algorand going to make DeFi easier for the mainstream, and just kind of help them with that terminology, I guess.
Well, so the beauty is they don't have to know about the terminology, right? It'll just work, right? I think our marketing slogan should be, it just works. Where if you're on any other blockchain, you know that it doesn't just work. You have to retry, and this doesn't work, and then this fails, and then you have to do it again, and then etc. You don't have any of those issues. So you don't have to explain to a regular user what this finality means or what atomic swaps mean. You just know from the experience that you're seeing, and that it just works the way you think it should work, and that's the beauty of it.
Right. Okay, let's talk a little bit about tokenization, because that's also having a moment right now where everything is being tokenized.
Right.
And you mentioned at the beginning of this episode that what was being tokenized now on Algorand that you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, there's lots of products. There are lots of products being tokenized, a lot of financial products. And so, if you're thinking back to about our roadmap, like one of the core focus areas is on tokenizing financial products. And so, one of the cool things about Algorand is if you think about stablecoins, for instance, if you think about stablecoins don't need smart contracts. When you think about when you create tokens on another blockchain, every token requires a smart contract. On Algorand, the token is built into the main, what we call an ASA, an Algorand standard assets, is built into the protocol. So when you create a new token, you don't need to create a smart contract. And the token comes with all of the features that are required from a compliance perspective. It supports freezing, it supports whitelisting, blacklisting, clawbacks, all the things that now are going to be required to be compliant are already baked into the protocol. So if you're a developer, if you're a tokenization platform, you don't have to worry about any of these things. It's already baked in. And so stablecoins don't need to rely on smart contracts. Is the basic point, and that of course makes it far more secure. But the second thing that we're doing is to kind of further enable tokenization of financial products. We're basically building what we call debt ASA, which are basically versions of debt-based products that are tokenized on chain and that bring with them all the characteristics of that debt product. So if you think about a debt product, you have an interest rate, you have maturity, you have a cash flow stream. So all of these attributes of this product will be tokenized on chain, so you can actually do much more intelligent and smarter things with your product in a completely organized and controlled fashion. And so we'll do the same thing. We'll have a first version of debt ASAs available by the end of this year, and then we'll switch to equities next year. So, and we're using standards. Like we all believe at Algorand that a standard-based approach is the only way to go, and so we're relying on Actus standard, which is a standard for tokenizing products, and we're building that on chain.
Interesting. Okay, well, I'm going to be on the lookout for that because that definitely sounds like something I want to further explore. Let's talk about the blockchain trilemma because, and maybe I'm wrong here, but I think Algorand was kind of created to solve the blockchain trilemma. If you could explain to our listeners what the blockchain trilemma is and how Algorand is solving that, that would be great.
Yeah, so the blockchain trilemma was the idea that you cannot be decentralized, secure, and scalable at the same time. You can only have two of the three. And so when Silvio Micali, who's the founder of Algorand, looked at this and said, no, there is a way to be decentralized, scalable, and secure at the same time. And that was the kind of original premise of Algorand. And we talked about this earlier, about this kind of very efficient consensus mechanism that Silvio created based on verifiable random function, which is basically a lottery system. And this is what basically enables Algorand to be secure, decentralized, and scalable at the same time. And so, there was one blockchain that just said that they could do now over 100,000 transactions per second. But, the cost of that is that you need massive amount of hardware in like massive data centers and to be able to achieve those numbers. And we feel that that's not decentralized, right? To be decentralized, ideally, and to be censorship resistant, you need to be able to offer anybody the ability to run a node from their home and do so efficiently. And our consensus mechanism allows people to do that while still being very scalable. And that's credit to the consensus mechanism that Silvio built.
Right. Yeah. I caught up with Silvio in Paris during Proof of Talk, and he's incredible. Yeah. I was so fortunate to have like a one-on-one interview with him. Definitely want to get him back on this podcast because he really is a genius. Now, in terms of the blockchain trilemma, so decentralization, I get that, but how do you ensure security when you've got, all of this decentralization? How can you ensure that the network stays secure?
Well, the network stays secure because of staking, right? That's what basically guarantees the security of the network. And so we just recently, actually, just beginning of this year, we announced staking rewards. And so originally we didn't have staking rewards. So people were, we always thought like, hey, people should stake on Algorand for the goodness of their heart because it's so easy to do. Like you don't need any specialized hardware. There's no minimums, there's no maximums. You can stake as little as one algo. So why wouldn't you stake? And so there were actually no organized staking rewards. And the result of that was that a large percentage of the stake was in the hands of the foundation, and that's obviously not very decentralized. And so we decided, and that was part of the previous roadmap, to launch staking rewards. And so we launched those staking rewards at the beginning of this year. And guess what? Incentives work. People react to incentives. And so as a result of that, the staking percentage on the Algorand network doubled, while at the same time, the percentage of stake that was owned by the foundation went down from 70%, close to 70%, to now about 20%. So we've
That's
become
incredible.
far more decentralized. And that's over a course of 6 months. That's a fundamental change in like the security model and the decentralization model of the network. And so now we have about 20% of all algos that are staked, and only a small minority of those are actually staked by the foundation.
That's incredible. Thank you for sharing that. That's really interesting. For the staking rewards, first of all, I should stake algo. It seems like
You
it's
should.
easy to do. No, I totally should. Actually, before I get into this question, if I wanted to stake algo, or if a listener wanted to stake algo, what exactly do they need to do?
So there's many ways you can stake algos. So one is you can run a node. You get like yourself a mini PC. You install like the software. We have like this very easy software installation mechanism, and then you can just stake algo, and then you have your own node running from your home. That's kind of the most pure way. But for people that don't want to run hardware, they can participate in liquid staking. And so many of our DeFi protocols offer liquid staking. Fox Finance does, Tinyman does, a number of other ones do as well. That's the second option. The third option, we have something unique called ready pools. You can basically, if I'm a node runner, I can set up a ready pool, and I can invite people to participate in my ready pool. So I'm actually running the markvl.algo ready pool myself, which is kind of fun to do. And then you can set the conditions, say like, oh, okay, I want to basically a 5% commission for myself. I'm going to pay 95% to my stakers. I'm going to pay out rewards in real time, or I'm going to pay it out every 1,000 blocks or every week or whatever you want to do. And then people can just look at the dashboard and say, oh, I like Mark VL. I want to basically support him. And, I think he has a reliable node and I can see the uptime. So I'll stake my algos with him. And so it's basically a delegated staking mechanism where you can stake your algos with anyone that's on that dashboard. And get rewards accordingly. And that doesn't require any kind of investment in hardware or anything like that. Or the alternative is you can also do delegated staking to a node. So there's also a dashboard with node runners, and you can say, okay, I want to basically stake my algos to that node. That's another option. So there's like multiple options to stake your algos, depending on what you prefer to do. Do you want to keep control over your algos? Are you okay with your algos being in a smart contract? All these variables kind of can help you guide you towards the best option for you. But there's like a whole variety of options available.
Okay. And what are the rewards in terms of percentage, or how does that work? If you could share with
Yes.
us.
So the staking rewards is quite unique. So the staking reward rate right now is about 6%. And remember, the inflation in Algorand is very low. Like the inflation is close to 1% right now, and there's an absolute cap in the number of like tokens that are available. Over or close to 90% of tokens have been issued already. So the inflation is very low. So your net staking reward rate is very high. So it's about 6% right now. And of course, it depends if you participate in liquid staking. There's a little bit of a commission that goes to the liquid staking provider, but the staking rewards are about 6% right now.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Shifting gears a little bit, we are seeing, a lot of AI applications being used now. In fact, I got into a Waymo car. I mean, they're all over San Francisco also, but they're all over Austin, the self-driving cars, to get here to this podcast studio. So another great example of AI. But let's talk about what Algorand is doing with AI agents. I mean, do you guys have plans to do anything there? Are you already using AI agents?
Yeah, so there's two use cases that we are heavily focused on. One is around the developer experience. How can we use AI to make the developer experience as easy as possible, make it as easy as possible for people to onboard onto Algorand? And so we just completed a partnership with Bolt, who's a vibe coding platform. And they ran what they call the largest hackathon in the world. They had over 100,000 developers participate in vibe coding on the Bolt platform. and we were their blockchain partner. So any of those developers that were interested in building on a blockchain were able to do so on Algorand, and we're mainly using AI to actually build that integration, which was super, super cool to see. And so we'll continue to push the boundaries of AI to make it as easy as possible for developers to onboard onto crypto. And we already have it, it's already quite easy because we support native TypeScript, we support native Python, so there's already quite a few elements that make it easy for developers to onboard, but AI is going to make it even easier, and we're excited about the opportunities there. So that's kind of one element. The second element is, to me, is agentic commerce. You can see this happening already, right? The LLMs are moving from chat boxes to basically agents that can take action on behalf of the user. And so I think we'll see a massive proliferation of these agents. We see millions, potentially even billions of agents that are acting on behalf of users and doing stuff for you, making your life easier. And so these agents will start interacting with each other. If you're a travel agent, maybe you'll talk to a hotel booking agent, and these agents will interface and they'll try and figure out the best way to kind of get something done. They'll exchange value, and then of course they have to pay each other. And then the question becomes, how are these agents going to pay each other? Are they going to use traditional banking rails? Is an agent sitting in Milan going to pay an agent in New York over traditional banking rails and wait 3 days for settlement with all the costs associated with it? Probably not. They probably want to use crypto rails because those are instant and they're fast, especially on Algorand, and very cheap. And so we are looking at the space like, how can we make sure how can we be an enabler of this agentic commerce world? And what can we do to help developers pay and implement these payment flows on Algorand in the best possible way? And so we've been looking at what are some of the emerging standards. Like MCP is a key emerging standards of how an agent takes action on a third-party server, or in this particular case, Algorand. So we built, actually one of our protocols in our ecosystem, Go Plausible, built an Algorand MCP server. So now it's easy for any agentic system to interface with Algorand without having to know all the specific about how Algorand works. The second piece is the agent-to-agent protocol, right? And Google has what's called an A2A protocol, and so we're looking at that protocol and figuring out how to integrate that with Algorand. And then there's actually the payment protocol itself. And Coinbase has developed this X402 protocol that allows payments to happen over the internet, and we're looking at the integration of that with Algorand as well.
Wow.
And so a lot of investment in this kind of agentic commerce space. And there's something I think that is really unique about this, is as you start doing this integration, one of the things you have to figure out is how do you ensure that an agent can be trusted and that an agent does what it's supposed to do and doesn't go off the rails by malicious prompts or anything like that. And so I think when you think about how to implement this, I think you also need to start thinking about identity frameworks, right? An agent needs an identity, and the identity needs a trust model behind it to make sure that the agent is reputable. And then it needs some sort of a constrained autonomy on a blockchain so it doesn't go off the rails. And so we're looking at how we build that on chain. So a lot of effort in terms of enabling this agentic commerce world and giving the developers the tools and the frameworks that they'll need to build these payment flows on Algorand.
Yeah. Okay, Marc. So I've got some questions from X from some people that follow me. They wanted to ask you a few questions. So I chose some. Obviously, you don't have to answer everything. But before we get into the questions, I want to ask you, there's a lot going on with Algorand. We've talked about DeFi and enterprise use cases and AI agents. Like, what are you most interested in, and what do you hope to see like moving forward, I guess?
I think there's so many opportunities. Like if you think about these use cases that we talked about, the agentic commerce and tokenization, these are all kind of trillion-dollar use cases by themselves. But what I'm mostly interested in is get to mainstream adoption and get real users, non-techie. You could break outside the pure crypto world and get non-techie users, regular users, to be using a blockchain in the best possible way, and enabling those use cases. That's what gets me really excited.
Right. So, and you mentioned it's world chess, that use case. I think.
Yeah, so they're of course one partner of ours, and so they're kind of the launch partner for the products that we built there. But getting mainstream usage on chain, I think that's what we're aiming for, and that's what we hope to be able to accomplish. I'm actually very excited because we're going to launch a new campaign in September
Mm.
called Algoland. And so we talked about a lot of the use cases, we talked about DeFi, and just not enough people know about this. And so we want to do a big campaign, invite people over to Algoland and get them to explore, all of the projects and protocols that exist on chain and win prizes. And so we have weekly prizes. We have a big prize at the end of the 13 weeks. And so we're very excited about that. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Okay, so that's interesting. And actually, some of the users on X wanted to know more about this marketing campaign. Algoland, is this
It's
like a
called
real
Algoland.
Algoland?
Algoland.
Okay, okay. So is this like a real life experience, or is this like in the metaverse?
So Algorand is going to be like, we'll basically do weekly quests. We do weekly quests. And so we tell people like, hey, download the Para wallet, which is the primary wallet that is being used on Algorand. Download the Para wallet, hook up your wallet to this Web3 campaign page that we're building. And then there's going to be weekly quests, like there's going to be swap week or, DeFi week, or we'll have like meme coin week, etc. And so we'll basically tell people like, go do this and try this out and do something on Fox Finance or something on Tinyman, like place a bet on Alpha Arcade. And so we'll basically show people all the things that they can do on chain that they may have never heard of. And they can win cool prizes in the process.
That's awesome. I want to be a part of that. So I'm going to look into that. And I think that is another just great way to get, I mean, even crypto users like me, I've been in the industry since 2017. I would learn a lot from that. Honestly,
Right.
like I obviously don't know everything. So I think it's good for both, Web3 natives and newbies as well.
Yeah. So we're very excited about this. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's set up as a really fun campaign where, and it's very social oriented as well. So you get points, by completing quests. But if you introduce other people, you get referral points, which improve your chances to win at the end of the week or at the end of the quarter. And of course, everything is running on chain, right? I mean, we believe in the chain, so everything is running on chain. We're using our verifiable random function, our lottery system, our consensus mechanism to pick the winners as well. So it's going to be very cool.
Great. Well, I look forward to that. So you actually answered some of the questions that I was going to ask you from the X users. But there is one that I don't know if we touched on. So someone was asking to know more about DREC Alliance progress and where that is going. Any guidance? Did we already talk about DREC Alliance?
Yeah, I mentioned it briefly. So DREC Alliance, we are together with Hedera and a number of other chains, Cardano. We are a founding member of the DREC Alliance, and what the DREC Alliance is trying to achieve is get rid of the issue of private keys and mnemonics, and the fact
Right.
that you have to write down your 24 words or 25 words, or depending on how many words you have, and then you have to back them up. And if you lose them, you lose all your money. And so it's a really bad system. Like it's like we can't even deal with passwords. So but if you lose your password, then there's always somebody you can call to reset your password, right? Like as we all know, with private keys, it's not the case. You lose your private keys, you've just lost your money. And so we are never going to onboard 1 billion users if we don't solve that problem. And so the purpose of the DREC Alliance is to try and solve that problem. And it solves the problem by basically sharding your private key and giving pieces of it to your social network, to your friends, to your family. And then it will automatically, so it backs up your private key with a number of your friends or family members. And if you lose your private key, it will automatically reconstitute that private key for you in the background. And so that's what the DREC Alliance is trying to achieve. And so I talked about the Rocka wallet. So one of the core components of the Rocka wallet will be this DREC implemented social recovery mechanism, because that's of course a key friction point that we want to eliminate.
That's interesting as well. Great. Well, Marc, I think we touched on everything I wanted to ask you about. So did you have any other comments and remarks before we end the podcast?
No, I've said like keep an eye out for Algoland. So we're very excited about this. The campaign is launching mid-September. We'll have like a lot of cool prizes, so you can win Formula One tickets to Vegas if you want to, and we have a lot of cool things happening. So keep an eye out for that. September 15-ish.
Okay, that's amazing. I want to win Formula One tickets to Vegas, or even here in Austin, Formula One is happening, I think, next month or so. So hopefully I can do that. And then I had one final question for you, and now I'm actually blanking on it. Oh, right. Okay. So Algorand, are you guys doing any major event this year? Isn't it Decipher that you do every year, or?
So Decipher is coming up next year. So we haven't announced exactly where it's going to be, but we are going to make an announcement sometime in Q4. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Got it. The last Decipher I was at was in Dubai, I believe, and it was yes, and it was very, very fun. Were you there, or were you with Algorand?
That was before my time. That was
before your time. Okay.
Yeah, the last one that we did was in Barcelona. I was there, but yeah, Dubai was before my time.
Got it. Okay. Well, this has been such a good conversation, Marc. If our listeners want to get in touch with you, or if they want to learn more about Algorand and the quest that you guys are launching soon, how do they do that?
So they can find us, of course, on all normal, regular channels. Algorand.co is our website. They can follow us, Algorand Foundation, on Twitter. We are on TikTok. We're on Instagram. We're on YouTube. So you can find us everywhere crypto projects can be found.
And what is your X handle?
Algorand Foundation.
Perfect. Okay. Marc, thank you. It's been a pleasure, and definitely hope to catch up with you soon.
Great. Thank you, Rachel.
Thanks. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Special thanks to 4Labs Digital for producing Web3 Deep Dive podcast. I'd also like to thank the sponsors behind Web3 Deep Dive. You can click the links in the show notes to learn more about each of the Web3 initiatives from these sponsors. Finally, thanks to the listeners for tuning in. Please be sure to subscribe, like, and share.